Hi. So I figured I would take you along with me because I have a desire to collect some quotes and some things from the week just to get an idea of what I could potentially write about. I have some ideas because I'm drafting right now what I want to, or I'm supposed to draft what I want to write for my Substack newsletter, but I just want to see if I come across anything that really sparks anything. And so to do that, I am going to go through all of the essays and such that I've received this week, not all of them, whatever we get done in 30 minutes, and see what calls to me, what doesn't. Not everything that everyone sends me is something that I'm necessarily intrigued by or want to read. A lot of the time, I do end up just skimming. So I just wanted to take you through that process with me. And if there's anything that piques my interest, any quotes I want to collect or things like that, then I will do that with you. As always, we will be working in my Obsidian, and we're also going to be looking at my TBR folder, if you will, of all of these. Okay, so let's just get right into it, shall we? This is one that I had started to read. Um, let's see here. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to kind of like go through this. I'm not going to really do any commentary as I'm doing it. I might go ahead and pop into voiceover if there's anything I want to add to what I am doing right now. But for the most part, this is probably going to be just me kind of going through and collecting things. I will go ahead and leave in the blog post that I post on Patreon for these videos all of the links to any of the newsletters that I do end up collecting. So those blog posts are available on Patreon to free members. So go ahead and join if you are interested in any of the links of the articles or newsletters that I do end up collecting today. If, like I mentioned, if there's anything of consequence that I would like to point out as I'm collecting them, I will. Otherwise, I will meet you at the end of the video to kind of talk through what I did end up collecting. If there was anything that I kind of realized I was collecting some threads or noticing any threads and stuff like that. But for now, let's go ahead and dive into this little session, and I will add some music for anyone who is interested in having that. Otherwise, feel free to mute the video and put on your own music if you would like. For you, it was probably not 30 minutes, but it has been 30 minutes for me. And I did end up only creating 2 notes or 3 notes, two from that captured specific quotes and one that is a word. And I'll talk about that in a second. Let me just open these up. So I created the note for seep, and the reason why is because it came across in one of the articles, and I didn't end up actually adding anything to the article, anything from the article into my notes, but the word seep reminded me of the book that I read back in 2023 or yeah, I want to say it was 2023. It was one of my 5-star reads of the year. It's called The Seep. I did read it through audiobook, and one of my favorite reads of the year. It was definitely a 5-star. And I don't know, it just reminded me of that, and I really like the word seep, and I feel like there's something there that I could potentially do something with. So I just put the note in. I haven't, this would be word bank. Do I have the word bank? Yeah. Collection. So word bank, and then yeah, there's really no connection to this. I do want to add the seep because I have been wanting to add historical historical whatchamacallit. I want to go back and add the books that I read throughout the previous years that I have information for, and so the seep would definitely be one of those. So I'm just going to create the placeholder note for it. So the author is Shauna Porter. They are a non-binary author, and what I really liked about the audiobook is that the audiobook was also narrated by a non-binary person. So that was really, really good. I cried like hell in that book. Okay. Hello, thank you. And then there. So that's pretty much it. I don't really have anything else that I want to connect this to, so I'm gonna just leave that like that. The first thing I read was this essay by Ian Arden called "The One About I," and there was quite a few really good quotes in here. So I'm gonna go ahead and just link this to artists. I'm not gonna create the actual quote notes right now. Do I want to? I don't want to really do that right now, but I will just go through these quotes with you. So I think a sign of a good artist is flexibility and open-mindedness that acknowledges the gray most of life falls into. I think the sign of a brilliant one is recognizing that some truths are quite simply unavoidable. What makes a writer? I don't think a creative writing degree makes you one, neither does acclaim or fiscal success. I think a writer is quite simply someone who does not know how to navigate, someone who does not know how to navigate this world without putting pen to paper. Someone who is preoccupied with words and sentences and story. And then this was a quote by Joan Didion embedded into this one. So I'm going to go ahead and create for sure this quote. Meaning itself was resident in the rhythms of words and sentences and paragraphs. My question is why you think productivity and artistic practice should be viewed as anything other than the conflicting oxymoronic ideals they are. The purpose of writing or creating isn't to tout a finished product. The value of what we do isn't in having a sellable thing to make us a profit. It is to fuel a curiosity and reflect who we are in the moment. We are creating said thing. We are our process. Our work lets us greet old versions of ourselves like old friends or lovers. And this one was really, I really felt called to this one specifically, not just because of what it's saying, right? And how, I have this concept of process over product. I think I do have something like that in here. Process. It may be in my arena, but you know what? Let me just process over product. Let me just add that there just in case. I do think I have a note about that though, so I don't want to create it just yet. But I also came across a TikTok the other day that kind of talked about this interview between two people, and they were talking about the same thing in theory, but they were actually not, because one of them was talking about artistry and creative practice, and the other one was talking about capitalism. And so they were talking about, I think, the difference, the way that artists need to change the way that they do things because of the times. And one was arguing that that was not the case because artists have always been and will always be artists, and creative process will always be the same in essence, right? Everyone's practice looks different, but creative practice will always be the same. The working of the craft will always be the same. But the other person was talking about how no, things change because marketing is different, and because, we need to promote our artistry in a different way. And so the person that was analyzing the interview was talking about how they were really just talking about two different things, even though they thought they were having the same conversation. And so I think that kind of speaks to this quote here as well. So I think I'm going to see if I can find that video, that TikTok, so that I can create a note and kind of link those two ideas together, because I definitely think there's something there that ties into the idea that I've also been collecting, which is process over product. And actually, since we're already here, I'm pretty sure I have it in my arena as a channel. It might be a private channel because I don't make them public until I have quite a few things in there. Yeah, so it is. So it's a block that I have called, or channel that I have called Practice Creation Creative Practice. And so that kind of goes there. I do think that I might have another one though. I could maybe have put them together. Yeah, I think I did combine them together, but that would be that one. So that is something that has been on my mind lately. So definitely want to do something there. And then this one also was really good to me because there's always this idea of like, nothing that you create as an artist is wholly original. But the things that we consume get digested and they go through a evolution, they go through a restructuring, a metamorphosis because of our lived experiences and the way that we perceive reality, and things that we have consumed alters that which we are then imitating. And so again, this concept is something that is very interesting to me as someone who is very into creative practice and all that jazz. And so that's pretty much what she's saying here. I don't think we as artists are capable of conjuring up work that is wholly original. We are a mirage of references. Our work, especially as young writers, is often a mimicry of those who came before. The difference here, though, and the difference is between someone who just uses AI to write or create art versus someone who actually does the work of artistry. That's what the newsletter was about. So the difference there is when we consume work, human beings, we digest it until it mixes with everything else we've eaten, all of our own memories and fears and observations fermenting together until what we spit out tastes and looks different. You cannot computer generate sincerity. These machines know nothing of pain or history or lust or anger. They cannot digest. And so really good quotes here that I think are going to do really well in my vault and work really well with some of the ideas and concepts that I'm kind of working on and am interested in. So definitely eager to create the quote notes for this. I will do that off camera though, because it's going to take a while and I am running out of time. And then the next one was a newsletter by Caitlyn Richardson. The Way the Weather Rearranges Me, talking about how she starts the newsletter talking about how there are people who create their ecosystems or the perfect weather conditions, and they live through that versus those that are affected by weather. And that reminded me of what I always talk about now that I live in Maine, having come from living somewhere like Florida and South Florida. Whenever I talk about how hot it is here, right? 80 Fahrenheit, 90 Fahrenheit, and I talk to my friends over in Florida, they're like, yeah, but that's a normal day here in Miami. And that is true. However, the difference is that where I live right now, there is no central AC, whereas when I lived in Florida, everywhere has central AC, so you don't really feel the conditions of the world outside, right? Which is similar to what happens in the winter right here. In the winter, because I have heating, I don't necessarily feel the effects of the weather outside. But in a place like Florida, where it is eternal summer, I really understood what Caitlyn was trying to put down, where, you're not really affected by the seasons because there are no changing seasons. Whereas somewhere like Maine, where I live in now, you really are prone to how the weather affects you, or how Caitlyn mentions in her newsletter, how the weather rearranges her. And so I did put in 2 quotes from that newsletter because it was later on moved into a paid, and I'm not a paid subscriber of hers. So The philosophy of seasons is simple. Begins with the understanding that life is not linear, no matter how we try to measure it. It swells and recedes, hardens and softs, blooms and withers. Each season carries its own tempo, its own moral, its own instruction about how to be alive. Winter pares life down to what is essential. Spring insists on trust in the unseen. Summer gives you abundance, but quietly asks how you will bear its weight. Autumn reminds you that beauty and loss are not opposite, but twins. To live seasonally is to submit to this rhythm without trying to hold it still. It's to let your inner life lean into what the outer life is doing. You don't fight the shortening of days, you let your pace shorten too. You don't resist the lengthening of light, you let yourself stretch out in it. And you accept, in a way that never stops hurting, that the moment you begin to love a season most is the moment it has already started to leave. So, again, really, really enjoyed that quote and excited to be able to kind of digest it into different concepts, because I do think there are different topics or thesis statements within these two quotes, these two paragraphs. So I definitely want to create a couple of different ideas surrounding this one, which I will do at some other point, like I mentioned earlier. So that is today's obsidian session. I think that that's what I'm going to do for today. I am going to go ahead and just tag this as inbox because I have to go in and actually create the notes. So I will do that. Because these are the first source notes that I'm creating for these writers, I'm not creating a tag. I'm not creating a linked note to them. If I find that I create a second one of these, so let's say I type in, let's say, I don't know, let's go into a random letter so that I can go in here, right? And just say A. So if I come here and I see, oh, I actually do have one already, this person came up to my autofill, I will go ahead and create them then. But for the time being, because I don't know if I'm going to create another note, I figured it's not really necessary at this time to create that linked note. I did tag them to newsletter, so that's fine. This is in English, that's fine. And then I do want to relate this to seasonal cycles. And then let's go back to that thing. And then 2025, original language, English. And then I don't have a note on AI, but I guess I will create one. And then let's see, is there anything else? Artistry, so artists, writer. And then yeah, I think that's going to be it for now. I do definitely want to create some quotes, and of those quotes, I will go ahead and tag more things. Okay. So that's that. I am going to move Seep into the folder because that's pretty much that. Yeah, cool. So thank you so much for joining me for this little session. I hope that you enjoyed it, that you got some inspiration from some of the quotes. Remember that I do have a link to the blog post for this down in the description if you want access to the links for the articles that I found most interesting. And if you have any questions, go ahead and leave them down below. But otherwise, I will catch you guys in the next video. Bye!